It's playoff time in Kansas City, and welcome to Kingdom Kickoff, presented by Starcade Media. Guys, the Chiefs host the Jacksonville Jaguars at 3 p.m. today on NBC. And Rich, my nostalgic brain, all I can do is harken back to 1991, a season that you remember well because the Chiefs got its first playoff win since the Super Bowl IV season. But the next week, you had to go on the road after the emotions of winning that game against the Raiders. You had to go on the road to play the superior team in the Buffalo Bills and fell to defeat. So to me, this is all kind of coming back now as the Jaguars knocked off the Chargers a week ago to get to this point, and now they face the superior team in the Kansas City Chiefs. What kind of emotions does a team like the Jaguars coming into this? They're new to this, and they're going to have to come on and they're going to have to face the team, the gold standard in the American Football Conference, Rich Baldinger.
Yeah, a team that the Kansas City Chiefs, that the one thing you have to know the last 4 weeks, they learned how to play for full quarters. You know, the Jacksonville Jaguars, 7 out of the last 8 games, they've had to come from behind. So give them credit. But now they're coming to play the gold standards, as you say. And as I said, folks, I've got the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon on. And all I know is nobody knows what's on the dark side of the moon. And that's where Jacksonville's coming today. The Kansas City One Arrowhead Drive. When they land, it might be the only landing that they have that's going to be comfortable. Because I suspect today, Doug Peterson has no answer for the master. And the great one.
Wow.
The big red one. Mr.
Bringing it.
Andy Reid.
You know, Rich, a lot has been made about Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. Of course, they know each other. Doug Peterson played for Andy Reid. He coached numerous years for Andy Reid. As a player, when you know you're going to go up against a coaching or a offensive coordinator that was coaching you, I want to know what was more difficult when you went up against, like, let's say when you were on the road and you were going up against Bud Carson, a defensive coordinator that went up against you and saw you at practice, knowing your tendencies, or going up against Walt Corey, who was also a Chiefs defensive coordinator that knew you and saw you in practice. Both those defensive coordinators saw you in practice consistently on an everyday basis. What is more of a challenge, knowing that you're playing against a former offensive coordinator or knowing that you're going up against a former defensive coordinator who knows your tendencies?
Well, I think, of course, Doug Peterson in those private meetings all the time with Andy, that's where he's learned the game. He thinks he's going to know everything, but I think Andy's thrown some trinkets out in those last couple of games when we saw some people in different positions, Tony at running back in the red zone. So it's going to be a magic show today for Andy. And to answer your question, Shaggy, you know what? When it gets down to this, everybody's seen your film. Everybody has seen you in every type of moment, whether it be red zone, backed up on third down, bad game. They've studied, they've broken you down. You know what? A lot of that stuff now comes out to who just wants this game more. Who's going to play the game mentally for 60 minutes? Believe me, in these games, as you saw against the Chargers, that's the one thing the Chargers have yet to understand, that this game is 60 minutes. And they really only got their points in the first half from turnovers. They nearly never set the tempo. So that's what you're going to learn today from Kansas City Chiefs. And I think what Doug Peterson's going to tell these guys in the locker room, folks, doesn't matter what we've done. You are now going to play somebody that's going to hit you in the head for 60 minutes. Either you deal with it or you're going home. And
we see a lot of comments here talking about the crowd noise. Let's see if Arrowhead crowd can break their own record of the loudest stadium today. Bring your megaphones, Chiefs fans. And why are they talking about that? Because that's always a thing here in Kansas City. Because Trevor Lawrence went and did what Justin Reid did earlier before we played the Bengals and ran his mouth. I don't think it's going to be good for Trevor Lawrence, as it wasn't good for us and Justin Reid. And so let's take a look at Trevor Lawrence's comments and then why he's going to regret those comments.
Obviously, the environment and the atmosphere we're going to play in is one of, if not the best in the NFL. I mean, I can't imagine it'll be much louder than our fans were here on Saturday, honestly. But that was when we were on defense, not offense. So we played there earlier in the year, but this is a little bit different. It's a playoff game, divisional round. So the stakes are higher, so I expect them to be even crazier, more packed stadium. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta go play, and you got to make sure you communicate. That's the one thing. We got to get in and out of the huddle. We got to get to the line of scrimmage so we have time to communicate, because everything naturally takes a little longer when it's loud.
Second down. Denver inside their one. Elway is under center. Now he pulls away again. His hands on his hips. He looks back at Gordon McCarter, the referee, said, hey, what gives?
Again, I have asked the defense to help lower the crowd noise. Any further crowd noise problem will result in a charged timeout against Kansas City. Thank you for your cooperation.
I don't think Jaguars fans have ever had to worry about a ref telling them to quiet down. So Trevor Lawrence might want to watch what he says there.
Yeah, I was at that game.
Yeah, yeah, and I think Trevor Lawrence just better learn where to go with the football. He comes out and throws 4 interceptions in this game. It could be a long, long second half. So, yeah, why you even get involved with making statements like that? Keep your focus on the game. You've had enough issues in terms of turning over the football, not your offense playing at the level they need to be. I just don't see how you even find time to answer a question like that.
Yeah.
Well, if you look in totality, the last 8 quarters of Jacksonville's football, Trevor Lawrence only played good in the second half against the Chargers. He really wasn't that good in that game against the Titans when the Titans started the third-string quarterback Dobbs. It took the Jaguars defense to win that game and seal that division. So, Trevor Lawrence is going to have to play 4 quarters of football to win this game. And I think I wouldn't say his comments hurt him per se. It definitely riled up the Chiefs fan base, but I think he misspoke. I don't think he said that with any malicious intent, but it again shows his inexperience. What do you think, Clint?
Yeah, I agree with you 100% right there. And, we know what this is. The Chiefs now, this is a 7 straight division championships. This is old hat for the Kansas City Chiefs in here, Shane. This is Patrick Mahomes now has never played a road playoff game. We'll see what happens next week. Should it come to that, there could be a little asterisk to that as we go forward, but it's all about getting through this. And this Jaguars team, you mentioned it, 2 weeks ago, hosting the Tennessee Titans with the division on the line, losing late in that game, needing a defensive touchdown to win it. And I think this Jaguars team, it's a great story. Doug Peterson, after the loss to Kansas City back in November, said, we're going to be there. We're going to be in the playoffs. We're going to figure this out. And they did. Congratulations to them for that. They are an upstart, and we'll see where they go from here. But man, it's hard to see them coming in here and dethroning the gold standard of the AFC. One thing I do want to bring up, Rich Boldinger. Jags defensive coordinator Mike Caldwell, first-year coordinator, doing a great job, especially with the pass rush there. Guys like Josh Allen coming off the edge. But Chiefs fans, remember, he was the linebackers coach in Tampa Bay 2 years ago in 2020. We saw the Chiefs go into Tampa earlier that season, light them up for 500 yards. Tyreek Hill, everybody remembers that huge first half he had, the Chiefs beating the Bucs. And then the rematch in Super Bowl 55, where the Bucs completely changed the game plan, and they shut the Chiefs down 31-9 in that Super Bowl. So Mike Caldwell could be a factor here. The Chiefs put up over 400 yards against the Jags back in November, and so we'll see what he has. What kind of looks can we expect from the Jaguars defensively? Because we know what Patrick Mahomes, how good he is against the blitz, but that's the strengths of this Jaguars defense, is getting home, getting to the quarterback. But it's a chess match, because if you do that, Patrick Mahomes is going to light you up downfield, Rich.
Yeah. But let's begin with one thing. The one thing that these guys have not seen is a team that can thump you on the run. Now, I know Tennessee can do some there with with Henry and everything. And but with the way the Chiefs have been attacking the run, whether it be sweep, inside zone, counter plays, the personnel we have, when the Chiefs understand that when they're balanced, it is unstoppable of an offense. And Jacksonville has not seen an offense that has the weapons. Kelsey in the slot. You got Tony now, Juju Smith. We know at the running back position, catching the ball out of the backfield, in number 1, McKinnon, what he means and everything. So I just think this is a different animal. I think you are going to have to play this straight up. I don't think you can overwhelm this. You look at the Chargers. Basically, what did the Chargers have? Keenan Allen, who was playing on half a leg anyways. No Mike Williams, no opportunities to go really down the field. Chiefs have got a balance where they can go explosive, but then you also, Clint, you make the great point. If you are going to bring the blitz against Patrick and you miss, it's doomsday, buddy. You are on the dark side of the moon then. Things are all over with for you. So I get what you're saying. I see they're going to bring some pressure, but I'm going to tell you one thing. If I'm going to pressure a quarterback, I will not pressure Patrick, because what he can do throwing under duress, When you look at Trevor Lawrence, who's under duress, that ball will go anywhere, and that's the difference in these quarterbacks. Patrick, you can bring hell and high water against this guy, and he's going to find a way to get the pigskin out. Trevor Lawrence, sometimes the hot dog vendor might be catching that ball. So I think the balance
we feel like they have to blitz.
Level of skill that we have is just going to be overwhelming for Jacksonville today.
Yeah, they've got Trayvon Walker one edge, Josh Allen on the other, coming at Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley. If we only make them have to rush 4, then that could be a long day for Kansas City, trying to get past 7 guys in the backfield, whether it's the linebackers, the secondary. We know what Andrew Sisko did last time here in Kansas City, and that's why I feel like this could be a get-back game. He kind of laid out Juju there with a helmet-to-helmet hit.
Yep.
And so I think the Chiefs have a little more extra motivation, not just what Trevor Lawrence said the last time, kind of wanting to get back at Andrew Sisko. He also had a hit on MVS later in that game that kind of put him down, but MVS was able to come back. Juju wasn't. And we got to have to make them feel like they have to blitz. They've got to send a 5th, a 6th guy and not just let those edge guys get home. So we've got to get big games out of Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley on the edges.
Wasn't Tony doing the hop, skip, and jump down the sidelines for his first touchdown that win in this game? So,
that's
I think what you're doing here with the balance, and I think what Andy did a little bit in the last 2 games, especially the Raiders, when you solve the different personnel groupings. And this is what makes Andy the master. And Shaggy, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. I mean, as a former player, I'm going to tell you, anytime you take that personnel and you put them in a different position, now who's blocking them, who covers them, where are their eyes going, are they used to it? You can really change things up and give different looks. And I think Andy comes out today, and I'm going to tell you what, he is going to make the Jacksonville Jaguars defense spin their heads because they're going to have no idea what's coming at them because there's going to be so many multiple formations, shifts, and personnel.
I agree 110%. Andy Reid is the man who's going to surprise, even though he knows Doug Peterson knows all his tendencies, all his habits, all what he likes to do. I look for Jerick McKinnon to be more of a receiving threat. And I mean lined up as a receiver, and then work his way out of the backfield, which Andy Reid likes to run. And as you said, your last point about Kadarius Toney lining up in the backfield, that is a different look that opposing defenses are going to have to be aware of, and I think Doug Peterson, going back to the last game, knew that Andy Reid was probably going to do an element of surprise. Granted, the last game, Kadarius Toney was on a limited snap count because he was just learning the offense. But I think, that's why we saw a surprise onside kick to start the game. And, Jacksonville got 3 turnovers that game and an onside kick, and it still wasn't enough to lose by more than 10. So, I think there will be that surprise. I think that we will see new things. What do you think, Noah?
Well, I think that we need to get ready for the 5th member of Kingdom Kickoff here from Hot 103 Jams, our good friend, our good brother, our ally, Brian B. Shinen. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen, or good afternoon. It's a great day for playoff football. Let's go. Divisional round.
Good to have you, B.
How's everybody feeling?
We're feeling good. We're feeling good. What are you feeling going into this Saturday's game, Brian? Talk to us.
I'm going to be honest with you. And it's not normal that I feel like this. I feel great today. I feel like the Chiefs are going to win by at least 14 points. We'll dig into that a little later on. But I think there's a little payback element to this game with old number 5 on defense, Andre Sisko. Yep. I think that, along with the onside kick that you guys were just talking about, minus the turnovers, that I think the Chiefs will be laser focused going into today's game. Of course, Andy Reid coming off a bye week. We already know about those stats. I don't know, fellas. Is it snowing outside? These little cute Jaguars ain't ready for this cold weather that we're accustomed to here in Kansas City. I'm feeling good today, fellas. Let's go.
Brian, you mean people hanging out in a pool at TIA Bank Stadium there in Jacksonville? Is it going to be as loud as Arrowhead Stadium?
Yeah, those cute 50,000 fans that they have with the top tier tarred off. We know that's been tarred off for like 10, 15 years or so since Mark Brunell was playing with the Jaguars, and they had Maurice Jones-Drew in the backfield trying to run for touchdowns against Peyton Manning. But no, I seriously think the weather will play a part, though. Seriously, I don't know if you guys have hit on that yet. But if you're not used to this cold weather and you're not used to playing in it, it could be a deal breaker for some guys. Seriously.
Catching the football ball gets slick. Whole different game in this one. And Jacksonville knows one thing. When you look at who they've beaten to get into the playoffs, they know they fall behind against a Kansas City Chiefs team and that explosive offense. There's no second half. It's wave the white flag. It's get on the bus. You're not even going to get a plane ride home. You're going to get a bus ride home. And believe me, you're going to get a cold sandwich, and that's it. And so for them today, it's about playing smart football. But I'll tell you, if you break down the film on these guys, the Jaguars, man, that offensive line, we think we have some struggles sometimes. You watch them against the Chargers, and you talk about powder puff football. You pull on a counter play, and you're going to block a cornerback. You play finesse football, ain't happening in my game. I'm sorry, guys. These guys have no idea what's going to hit them today, and it's going to be a sledgehammer. Promise you, sledgehammer, not a ball peen hammer, but a sledgehammer.
And you know, Chris Jones has been hearing for 12 months. You still don't have any NFL playoff sacks. You don't have any sacks in the postseason. If Chris Jones keeps playing like he has been playing the last month and a half of the season, really, if you want to look at it in totality and say the regular season, but he has definitely been a man on a mission to create havoc in the middle, or if they want to put him at defensive end. What do you think, Clint?
That's very interesting. And I think the Chiefs had 5 sacks the last time the Jaguars came to town here, which is why they were able to overcome 3 turnovers, being, -3 in turnovers. And like Rich said, it's about good, clean football. We saw it against the Raiders. No special teams gaffes, which a little concern from Dave Tobe earlier this week saying, we're ready for anything. What does that mean? We're ready for someone to muff a punt? We're ready for 3 extra points to get missed, or 4 like the Cowboys said? I don't know what that means, and I don't want to go down that road. But I do like what you're saying, Shane. I think they're going to be able to move Chris Jones around. I think Frank Clark coming back from this hip injury, I think he's been able to acclimate back in. One player we're going to be without, guys, is McCole Hardman. Not going to be here for this game, but I do think, whatever's going on with McCole, this injury, it's been going on for over 10 weeks now. He was on IR, and we're just not sure. It can't be counted on. But, Rich, the weapons are there. Juju Smith-Schuster comes close to 1,000 yards receiving. MVS right there. You get Sky Moore back. You got Kadarius Toney, who's, I think, finally ready to make a giant impact in these playoffs. So the Chiefs miss McCole Hardman today. I say no.
No, I think we have a balance. And, just back to what Shaggy's saying, look at the Chiefs. Last 5 games, 19 sacks from that defense. They're going to bring the heat. So that I think Fortner, their starting center for Jacksonville, is not going to be playing. So Shatley, left guard's going to go to center. So there's going to be some communication problems up front, which bodes well for us with Chris Jones inside. So I look for a big game for him. Offensively, guys, I just think where we're at, they have not seen a Kelsey going down the middle on these routes and what he means to this offense at any time. So are you going to double on the outside? Are you going to bring pressure? Because if you don't get to Patrick, we know Kelsey's going to be bringing positive yards. And in the last game, Chiefs had 8 explosive plays, which was either over 20 yards passing, over 15 running, was the difference in 2 drives, would put 14 points on the board. I don't think Jacksonville has any answer for that today.
Yeah,
Rich, you brought up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Rich, you brought up Travis Kelce there. We brought this up on Arrowhead Allies. We talked about this on Tuesday. Travis Kelce, 12 touchdowns through 11 games. Is there any concern? 0 through the final 6. Travis Kelce has been known to be very public with the fact that sometimes he struggles to get through the regular season. We're not in the playoffs. These games aren't, these aren't high-profile opponents. The Chiefs played down the stretch, getting through the Texans and the Broncos twice and the Raiders. Here we are in the playoffs. Do you expect a different Travis Kelce coming into this? No touchdowns through 6 games, guys.
I certainly am. I think that Travis Kelce is playing for more than 95% of the Chiefs players on this current roster is playing for. And that's legacy. All right. Him, Patrick, Chris Jones, those 3 guys, they're trying to write their resumes for the Hall of Fame right now. And having a second Super Bowl will go a long way towards separating you from the pack, to be honest with you. Tony Gonzalez, he never sniffed the Super Bowl. And if Travis Kelce can walk away with at least 2, that separates him from, Tony Gonzalez, from Gates, from all those other great tight ends. and he'll have the rings and the resume to prove it, as well as Patrick. We talk about think about the quarterbacks who's only won one Super Bowl, and think about the quarterbacks who just that second Super Bowl just narrowly escaped them. And you talk about Peyton Manning, you talk like Eli Manning, perfect example. Without those 2 Super Bowls that he has, he's probably not nowhere near a candidate for a Hall of Fame.
Correct.
But now with these 2 Super Bowls and the fact that they're both over Tom Brady, and one of those being probably one of the greatest teams of all time with the 19-1 Patriots in 2007. So, man, what I'm trying to say is, man, those Super Bowls and these AFC Championship games, they go a long way into when they have those Hall of Fame enshrined meetings and a guy, one of the writers, it was supposed to be Therese, but RIP to Therese Baylor. Therese Baylor steps up for Travis Kelce in these big meetings with all of these writers, the Hall of Fame writers. And all he has to step up and say, Travis Kelce, 2 Super Bowls. That's it. He sits down. Everybody agrees that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. So I think that legacy, history, all of that is being played for Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. And that's why I think we'll see Travis Kelce at his best. I don't think we've seen him at his best this year as great as he's been.
Yeah, and you mentioned Eli Manning there. I mean, how different is his career versus Phillip Rivers if you take away those 2 Super Bowls? You might even say Phillip Rivers had the better career, better stats, but Eli Manning showed up in those playoffs and helped carry his team along with that defensive line. We know what they did, Justin Tuck, Ozu Manura, but JPP. But he carried them to there. They had the helmet catch. He took down the undefeated Patriots. And so, like you said, because of those 2 runs in the playoffs and 2 of those Super Bowl victories, he is considered for the Hall of Fame. So Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, you're right. This is for their legacy. We know what happened last year in the AFC Championship and how much that stuck in Patrick's craw of everybody talking about him and saying we're kind of questioning him. What happened in that second half? Is he falling back? Are these other guys catching up? All he did was go and win an MVP without Tyreek Hill. So he's been on a mission this whole season. I think that just goes to another level in this playoffs, and he's ready to show out and show everyone. That was a 1-game blip, that AFC Championship game. Things went awry, not just with me, with Andy Reid trying to throw the ball against a 3-man rush. They're dropping 8 people. And part of that's on Patrick Mahomes. We saw some RPOs where he should have given it to the running back, hold it out. He's forcing it to Demarcus Robinson. There's some drops. There's an interception there late in the game because he's forcing it to Demarcus. And so this means everything to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce for their legacy. And I think you're going to see the best out of them. And that's why I don't think this game is going to be as close as some people say it is.
Right.
Well, I'm
said.
house money, guys, and I'm taking the bets. House money. All I got to say is that I know we like to look at stats. I get it. But I know one thing. I get Coach Caldwell over there right now. He's sweating a little bit because he's not sure who's going to cover Kelce. So I'm house money. I'll take the bets. I think Kelce's going to have a great game today. And whether he scores a touchdown or not, guys, all we know is one thing. If Kelce wasn't on this football team this year, the Chiefs are probably not in the playoffs right now. So maybe the numbers aren't magical. Maybe I get it. Last game. But all I know is one thing. If he's not on this team, we're probably not sitting here right now. So.
Rich, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think people know what Travis Kelce actually does for the other playmakers in the offense. It's like when you got 11 guys on the field and you got maybe 3 or 4 accounted for the rush, okay? But then you got 2 accounted for Kelce a lot of these plays because they're bracketing him or they're doubling or whatever. So that allows McKinnon to get 8 or 9 touchdowns the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. That allows Juju to get loose underneath. That, if we had McCole, that would allow him to get loose maybe in the seam or on the outside. I know you don't want to hear it, Noah, but it's true.
He's not ever playing again.
So. On a jet sweep, I'll listen to that. But on a pass route, absolutely not.
I get it. I understand it. And that is to be considered. But the point is, man, Travis Kelce makes sure everybody eats. He does, just by his mere presence on the field.
And if you watch any of these playoff games from last weekend, I know there's tight end, but nobody on the team there had a player at the level at the tight end position that Kelce's at. And what a difference maker. So you want to bring pressure. Is there anybody better than getting to the open spot than Kelce right now and settling down and finding a way to be able to you talk about a security blanket for a quarterback. I think anybody would love that, Kelce. So maybe you're exactly right, Brian. The numbers Hasn't had a touchdown in the last 6 weeks, but look at all the other people are. So if you want to bracket Kelsey, or if you're going to run people at him and leave the seam open, or you know what, linebackers maybe going to drop a little bit more in that cover too, so it's going to give more room for McKinnon coming out of the backfield. Lights out for you. So that's where I think, you know, Kelsey he to me is the Derek Thomas of the offense. I mean, you have to keep eyes on him no matter where he's at, because he's such a playmaker.
And the Derek Thomas of the defense, or maybe the Reggie White, possibly, if he can reach this plateau. Frank Clark needs just 1 sack to tie Reggie White, 12 for the 4th most in NFL postseason history.
Hey.
Rich, you went up against Reggie White. Do you think Frank Clark and Reggie White are the same guy?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Reggie just, when you walked on the field and you saw Reggie, man, I'll tell you what. Whatever higher belief you had, you were praying at that moment, because I'll tell you what, Reggie was a man of men. And when he walked on the field kind of leaned a little bit. It was the strongest and the biggest man. I hit him a few times, and it was like hitting Dave Butts. You just hit him, and nothing really moved except your back and your neck kind of got squished a little bit. So, listen, Frank Clark has done what he can for the Kansas City Chiefs. I know he's dealt a lot with illness and everything, but Reggie White, to me, was a guy you could put on the field and nobody else had to be there, because he could tackle everybody at one time. So he was a man of men. I mean, there's just hasn't been many players like him ever since then. But what a heck of a player. But we've got a guy named Chris Jones who's, you know, same thing. So I look for him to have a Reggie White day today.
Yes, indeed. Amen.
Did I answer your question? No.
Yes.
Look, think about all the
Clark's not
great,
quite there. I got it. Okay.
think about all the great DNs that we've seen performances from, man, in the playoffs. Look, you know, Bruce Smith. I don't see him in there. Von Miller, as great as he's been. Dolman, Charles Haley, DT, even him. He like that. To me, I'm low key blown away by that stat. Like, we talking about Reggie White, the minister of defense, the probably top 2 greatest DNs that's ever played football in this 102 history of this sport. And for Frank Clark to be this close to eclipse that's the all-time sack record in the postseason. That's all
number 1.
I mean, look, that's nothing to frown at, man. That's nothing to
It's not. It's an incredible number. Yeah. I mean, I was nothing against Frank Clark. I know he's dealt with a lot of injuries since he's been here, some illnesses, and he's done what he can to help us out. But I love Frank Clark, but to put him in the realm of the minister. There's the minister, and then there is the minister.
Yeah, I ain't doing that now.
When the minister raised his right hand, there was thunder across the plains. Believe me, man.
Yeah.
And
basically the opposite of Chris Jones. Basically.
The thing about Reggie, the strongest man I've ever seen in my life. You know, he could walk in a weight room and not even warm up and power clean 450 pounds off the floor. That's the type of man he was. I mean, he was incredible strength, the strongest man I've ever seen. It was inhuman. I mean, it was ungodly, whatever he could do. 300 pounds over his head, military press with like nothing. Just lifting. Amazing.
While Frank Clark is 1 away from tying Reggie White, he's still 5 from the record, which is Willie McGinnis. Isn't that correct, Noah? Isn't Willie McGinnis?
Yeah, I think they said it tied him for 4th in NFL history. Yeah, with Reggie White. Yeah.
He played in a lot of playoff games. Makes sense.
If Frank Clark gets 5 sacks today, I believe he ties Willie McGinnis' playoff sack record. So, you know,
might have to wait on that a little.
Yeah, there's still 3 more games to play, so Frank Clark can still get some more sacks.
Well, in the comments here, I've been talking about Tyreek Hill all season. Everybody knows that I've been like, we lost this generational talent. And I will still say that we did, and we are still missing him in certain areas in situational football, I believe. But KC King's been giving me stuff all season because we've had the number 1 offense. We're the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And so my question is, do the Chiefs even have a chance without a generational talent like Tyreek Hill? That's geared to me. And yes, we do, but I would like our chances better if he was here. I'll say that.
I say the unpredictability of Tyreek Hill not being on the Chiefs' offense has made opposing defenses not play the way they were playing with those safeties back, and the unpredictability has opened it up for Kadarius Toney now that he's been healthy and has learned more of the offense. and we've seen it out of Jerick McKinnon, like
Yeah,
what Rich was saying, how they double up Kelsey inside the red zone. People aren't paying attention to Jerick McKinnon, who had 2 more touchdowns receiving or as a total this year than Tyreek Hill. So when you look at it in totality, the unpredictability has been the ultimate weapon. What do you think, Brian?
Oh, I'm right with you, Shaggy. I think that defense is not keying on what the Chiefs that they've seen on tape already. And Patrick, he had a tendency to just kind of, look that way or look 10's way or look 87's way. And I think you all are hitting it right on the nose. Let these other guys get involved and let them make some plays. Justin Watson last week, or not last week, 2 weeks ago against the Raiders. I feel like he was the one that opened the offense up in the whole game by trying to get it to Watson first and not necessarily going to Kelsey and going to your dependables. So I agree with you all. Let these other guys make plays. That's what they're here for. This is the great divide of the pie that Tyreek had. He had a big slice of the pie, right? So now everybody eats. Juju, you get you a little slice. All right. McKinnon, get you a little slice. Kadarius, get you 2 or 3 slices. Let's go ring around the rosy with you. And that just speaks to the power of your playmakers, man. When you got those guys that call so much attention, everybody else can eat.
I think the one thing you miss on Tyreek, though, we haven't talked about is what made him special. We know what he did on offense, but how about on special teams? Right. I mean, and that's where the Chiefs, I know, are going to be looking in the offseason for that player, because what Tyreek, how many touchdowns, punt returns, kickoff returns, or just good field position he could give you. And you just look at how many times the Chiefs were in positive territory because of what Tyreek could do. So, that's where one of the areas I think, when you have a player like that, a generational player, what he could give you in all aspects of the game, that's one of the difference makers for the Chiefs this year. If they had him, I think we wouldn't have so many issues on special teams.
Well, for all the fans that are gathered out at Arrowhead, whether you're there or with your families checking us out, we appreciate everyone for joining here. Lots of comments, lots of people in the stream this morning ready for this playoff game. Rich, it's that time of the show. We get your keys to victory. We've spent the better part of the last half hour kind of really building up this Chiefs team and what they are and what they mean to the AFC, and that the Jaguars may have a tall order ahead of them today, even though you certainly respect what they've done and what they can do if they bring their A game today.
Listen, the offense, the Chiefs have the ball. The one thing I think that they've done here, especially against the Raiders in the last regular season game, they're going to have to bring the attitude, score, which means you just don't take your foot off the accelerator. You keep going. Don't give hope. Bring despair. How do you bring despair? You keep cramming it down their throat. That's what you have to do against the Jacksonville team that's just been dreaming. Well, now it's time for the alarm clock to go off. And my dad yelling at me, get your ass out of bed. Let's get moving. Let's do that today with the Chiefs offense. When the Jaguars had the ball, let's go heavy in the box. I talked about their offensive line having issues. They do not Kirk at the wide receiver position. I think we can man up. I don't see anything at the tight end position, and we can get after Lawrence. And let me tell you something, Trevor Lawrence, he comes from a school called Clemson. And when you go to a school in North Carolina, you have to play Clemson. You don't like Clemson people. And it carries over even when you're age 62. So today, Mr.
Just a hypothetical.
I give you permission to take the C out of Clemson that's still on the chest of Mr. Trevor Lawrence. And that is my keys for today.
Yeah, we've got some comments here from Black Hills Audits. I want to audit this comment because he's saying, I'm taking the Jags in this game. The Chiefs haven't beat a team over 500 all season. That's just not true. So I want to audit this comment because
we're 5-2 against playoff teams.
And he says the Chiefs secondary is terrible. I would have never said terrible. I would have pointed out some faults earlier in the season, but coming down the stretch here, they're playing lights out. They've sat Josh Williams. They're trusting Jalen Watson. And so I actually like how the secondary is playing. We've seen Thornhill and Justin Reed come alive these past several weeks. So I actually like our secondary, especially going into this game against the Jacksonville and rematch. I think they're going to be ready.
Is this a Raiders fan talking?
It has to be one of the AFC West brethren.
I think it's a South Dakota State Jackrabbit. If they're in the Black Hills, that's got South Dakota State written all over it, or the Fighting Sioux of North Dakota. I don't know, something up there. I don't know what this is, Rich.
Well, best quote this week from head coach Brian Dable of the New York Giants. He said, "It's not what you did yesterday. did you get that much better today? You look at his defense and where they did to Minnesota. Sorry, folks. I understand on paper early in the year there were issues, and we've been going along. But this defensive secondary has improved, created turnovers.
Yeah.
Today, with pressure on the quarterback, they should have a field day in the back end today.
I agree.
Well, guys, it's time to get our predictions. We've given them on Arrowhead Allies earlier this week, but you always have time to think and revise as things have happened. So, guys, to me, Rich talked about loading the box. Travis Etienne, 5 straight games of 100 yards. We like what Christian Kirk can do, what Zay Jones can do, what Marvin Jones can do. Actually, one of the Chiefs assigned Marvin Jones last offseason. He is now a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I do like what the Jaguars bring offensively. They are not the same team that the Chiefs played, but neither are the Kansas City Chiefs, because it's playoff time and it's Arrowhead Stadium, and this is a completely different monster than you will see. I like the Chiefs haven't scored 30 at home all season, one time against the Raiders, right, on that Sunday night football game. I like the Chiefs winning this one 30-17, and on to Atlanta or Kansas City next week. I don't know. I'll have to look at and look at the diagram again. I'll have to do some homework on that.
And like I said on Arrowhead Allies, I think the Jags will probably be down by 3 or 6 sometime midway through the third quarter, and the Chiefs will just run away and bury it, win 34-17. They're not ready. Trevor Lawrence showed tendencies where he's on the decline. Like I said, against the Titans at home in the first half against the Chargers, I don't see him not. He's going to be a great quarterback. I think he can be a great quarterback, but it's just not ready yet. Kind of like when Peyton Manning went to the Jets in 2002 in the playoffs, and Chad Pennington and the Jets
41-0.
Yes,
Yeah.
But that was more of a blowout. But still, I don't want to put that on Trevor Lawrence's shed. I just think the Chiefs are just that much better, and Trevor Lawrence isn't ready just yet. What do you think, Brian?
Man, I'm gonna keep it simple. Chiefs 31, Jaguars 16. That we'll be sending the Jaguars to Cancun, drinking frescas with with the patrons down there in Mexico.
Well, I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to do after a loss. After the victory against the Chargers, he went to Waffle House. I don't know if he changes it up for a loss. It's IHOP or IHOB, if there is still some of those out there. International House of Burgers, if they changed it back. I don't know.
Trevor Lawrence can go to Niecy's after this L. We got him some nice chicken and waffles and grits and stuff at Niecy's. He can go there to get his nice L breakfast. Or
maybe he goes to Hayes Hamburgers. I don't know where he's going, but he's going somewhere else because it will be a loss. Like I said on Arrowhead Allies, I got this one 31-20. Chiefs take care of business, 11 points. They actually cover a spread. Are you kidding me? This is playoff football. We talked about
That's
it.
2 in a row.
Everything to Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce to jumpstart them and get back for last year's AFC Championship game that left a bad taste in their mouth. They're going to get right, and it starts today against the Jaguars, 31-20. What do you say, Rich?
Well, I heard one of their players from Jacksonville were referring to their team as a bunch of cockroaches. And all I know is when the lights come on, the cockroaches scatter. And there's one sound I've always loved, was when you got cowboy boots on and you land on a cockroach, it goes squish. And that's what's going to happen today, folks. I think what we're looking at here, the Kansas City Chiefs are coming out with a balanced offense. It's going to be a 1-2-3 combination knockout. I'm going with the Chiefs 34-7 in this one. We might give up one little one at the end just to make them feel a little better. But I'm sorry, Doug Peterson. I love you, buddy. You're doing a great job down there with Trevor Lawrence, but not today against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is emotion and it's passion. And when you got a street fighter like that, it's all over with.
Yeah! Man, Black Hill audit, whatever that is, they are convinced. They have no facts straight. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they are calling a Jags win. We will see what happens because it's the NFL. Anything can happen, as they say, but we are not really preparing for that right now, guys. And I hope that everybody, first off, I just want to thank everyone. This has been record-breaking numbers here that have been joining us here on this for the Kingdom Kickoff show today. Thank you, everyone, for following us on Starcade Media, for following Brian B. Shinen, for following Shaggy Shane Williams on all the stuff that they do. I would say for following Rich Baldinger, but he lives off the grid. So if you want to hear from Rich, you have to do it right here on Kingdom Kickoff. It's playoff time in Kansas City. It's the divisional round. It's time, guys. Enjoy it. It's time. Let's go. Chiefs versus Jaguars coming up at 3:30 on NBC.
Go Chiefs.
Go get your barbecue.
Let's go. Send Trevor Lawrence to Hayes Hamburgers. Let's go.